The University of Missouri is home to numerous labs, but the Department of Human Development and Family Science, or HDFS, is perhaps one of the most extensive and historic that you can find. From education to research, HDFS focuses on the science of being human through interactions with family members, teachers, schools, peers, social media, and romantic partners. I'm Rachael Norden, and in this episode of Thinking Out Loud, I chat with Dr. Francisco Palermo, Associate Professor at HDFS, on National Kindergarten Day, happening April 21st, and all the ways early learning is not just important, but essential for children to develop the social skills necessary for academic learning and peer interaction, plus a small look into the impacts of technology on early learning. So, let's get into it.
What exactly is Kindergarten Day? It emphasizes the importance of early education. There used to be a time in the U.S. when kindergarten did not exist. That's why first grade is called first grade, and kindergarten is not first grade. But essentially, it's a recognition that learning begins a lot earlier than in first grade. It's that a lot happens in early childhood. And so kindergarten is an attempt to prepare children to meet the demands of school that they're getting into, if you will. And a lot of the research actually shows that school readiness involves so much more than just academic skills. We often think about, what it takes to be ready for school and to set the stage to perform well academically in the long term. We often think about it as academic skills, like literacy skills, like knowing your letters, knowing a few words, and maybe knowing how to read a little bit. And we also think about some number knowledge, color knowledge. So basically, we think about academic skills alongside with language skills as being part of school readiness. But that's only the academic side of school readiness. School readiness is much more than that. It includes things like your ability to make friends, your ability to sit still, pay attention, follow instructions, even hold a pencil. It includes the ability to maintain friendships, to resolve conflicts among friends when they happen. And it involves being able to ignore distractions and persist when the demands get hard. And so Kindergarten Day, National Kindergarten Day, emphasizes the importance of those early education experiences. And I would like to think that it also emphasizes the importance of not just kindergarten, but earlier education in general. A lot of the work that early education researchers are doing now and teachers is recognizing that learning starts much earlier. Your social emotional development, which are all the other skills that are not academic, skills that also form part of being ready for school, are learned much earlier in our relationships with our parents at home, our siblings. We learn how to regulate our emotions and our behaviors in a lot of home context. And a lot of times for many children, they also have opportunities to learn those things in preschool settings or childcare settings as well, where they come into contact with other adults and peers that are their age, where they can practice a lot of these skills before they start school, so that when they enter school ready to learn.
So it sounds like, and there's so many things I could pick out of that, but it sounds like kindergarten actually emphasizes the social learning over the academic learning, the socialization that's required before academic learning happens.
And that's a really good catch that you picked up on that, because one thing that I didn't mention in that whole spiel that I said was that a lot of learning occurs in the context of social interactions. So if you look at preschool programs and kindergarten programs, they're set up a little bit different than traditional schools. Mm-hmm. So traditional schools, the teacher is instructing the student, and the student is absorbing all of that information. But in preschool and in kindergarten settings, they're designed for children to learn in the context of social interactions during play interactions, during shared activities that they're doing together to help set that social base or social emotional competence that is so critical alongside the academic skills and language skills that kids need. It turns out a lot of good research is showing that, for example, playing in preschool and in kindergarten is not just playing. Children learn when they play. Children learn language skills, literacy skills, math skills. They also learn how to make friends, how to maintain those friends. And so those social interactions that kindergarten fosters and early education settings do so as well. Preschool or childcare centers, when they're when they're high quality early education settings, they emphasize those social aspects that really are the foundation for school readiness. Is that social competence, knowing knowing really how to regulate your emotions. Like when you hear something, when you're trying something new and it's frustrating, some children are better able to regulate those emotions, settle down, and really persist in the task, while other children might have a little bit of a hard time and maybe not persist as long anymore. And those skills are learned way before kindergarten. They can begin in kindergarten too, but a lot of children bring a lot of these skill sets into kindergarten. And the home and those early education experiences really set the stage to prepare them to meet the demands.
From the perspective of, early child development over the years, and how I'm sure that, approaches change a lot over time as new things are learned, as society changes and cultures change. So I guess I kind of want to dig a little bit into that. Has there been a lot of changes in how kids are, how these environments are being facilitated, especially in the context of technology becoming something that is ever more present in our lives, not only in childhood, but all the way through adulthood? How is something like that impacting how we approach early childhood learning?
So there's a lot to unpack.
Sure.
Over time, historically, things have changed dramatically. There used to be a time, if we think back at the 50s and 60s, and even the 70s, most children did not attend early education programs. They were mostly at home. As more people started entering the workforce, childcare, especially moms in the 70s, really started kind of entering the workforce in larger numbers. There became a greater need for those early education experiences. And early education has been around for a long time. I mean, Head Start program, the federally funded early education program for families of socioeconomic disadvantage, was created in the mid-1960s. So this gives you kind of an idea of when early education kind of started to pick up steam, for lack of a better way to put it. And so definitely now we're at a point, fast forward to 2026, we're at a point where many, many children attend early childcare or preschool classrooms or programs, but there's not enough. There's not enough to meet the demand. So it is a little bit of a national crisis, what's going on. There's more kids that are in need of early education or childcare programs to help them prepare for school, a lot of times because both parents are in the workforce. And so that doesn't mean that parents are not still playing a major role in their child's early learning, but it does mean that there's a large part of the day in which children need to be in other settings to learn about a lot of those things too. And by the way, children never forget who their parents are. So attending preschool or childcare at a very early age really doesn't have a negative impact between the relationship that a child can have with their parents. And so I think there's what has increased is as the labor force trends have changed, the need for early education is also increased, and we're at a point where the demand outweighs the supply As far as how technology has evolved, it's a very interesting question because I'm trying to think, okay, how has technology kind of evolved? So much of early education in kindergarten and in childcare or preschool settings is really that social interaction piece between peers or classmates and between teachers and with parents. And so I think about during the pandemic, a lot of children could not be in preschool settings or in school settings and even in kindergarten. And so a lot of those children received support through virtual meetings. And there's still a lot of research being done in terms of how those virtual environments really, whether they promote learning as much as in-person environments. But the truth is that even if that research is still emerging, I don't think it's going to be the same because there's so much about a child's behavior that a teacher cannot control as well when they're sitting there virtually. Like if a child is spinning in their chair, the teacher cannot say, hey, why don't you sit in this chair that doesn't spin instead of this one, right? And so there's so much about the classroom environment that the teacher controls and sets up purposefully to promote learning in that environment that they may not have that same control from a virtual setting. And then when you have multiple children in a virtual setting who are attending those early education programs, I think it's going to be challenging for any educator to keep the attention of all of those children in a virtual
Sure.
setting. As far as how technology has facilitated things, it has facilitated the communication between parents and families, for example, which is another big part of children's school readiness. Is really, it's not like the teacher in preschool is working independently from the family. Ideally, the two settings are working together to promote early learning. And so technology has facilitated that ability for the early educators and the families to work together. I'll give you an example. A lot of children are learning English as a second language and come from homes where English is not the primary language spoken. So a lot of times, teachers who don't speak the language of the family can also help children learn English as a second language, but to communicate with the family, to learn about the things that the child likes, the interests, their motivations. A lot of times to communicate with the family, you can use technology like an app to help you translate messages, emails, or even these days you can use an app to translate live conversations. So technology has facilitated a lot in terms of early education, but really the learning component from children, I think it's still an in-person kind of thing. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah.
Small environments where children have opportunities to interact with adults and others in person are probably going to be the most beneficial.
It sounds like it can be summed up that there are some pros and some cons, but altogether we're all still learning about what the impact is and what it's going to be. So zooming, I suppose, back in or back out to National Kindergarten Day and really just kind of starting to wrap up this conversation, I wonder, do you have any suggestions, anything, or any messages that you would send home to our listeners who have young kids right now, how they can really, I guess, harness the celebration of this time? This, what is the best way? Not that we're all out here celebrating National Kindergarten Day necessarily, but what are some ways that parents can engage with their kids to really emphasize the messages you're trying to drive home right now?
If I could tell parents to do one thing or a couple of things to help their children prepare for school, is really to spend time with them, talking and playing, and maybe engaging in some shared reading experiences. You don't have to do anything probably different than what most parents are already doing. It's leveraging those opportunities and recognizing those opportunities to play with numbers or to play with letters or rhyming games. For example, if you're in the car, identify license plates that have start with an A. There's a bunch of games that you can go through to identify all the letters in the alphabet and license plates, for example. But if there's one thing I can tell them is just spend time with children talking about a lot of different things, not the same things over and over again, and to start talking with children even when they're 0 years of age. And the other thing that I would say, if you are looking for a child care program, is to know the program well, talk to the educators, and really you're looking for a high quality early education or child care program, whether it's a preschool center or whether it's somebody's home with a smaller number of children. That matters, but not as much. At the end of the day, what matters is who is the person and what are they doing with their child and the other children. If they're creating a stimulating environment where the child feels safe, that fosters learning in a lot of the same ways that we talked about, then that is a high quality program that is most likely to benefit children.
That was Dr. Francisco Palermo, Associate Professor at HDFS, on the impacts and importance of quality early learning to celebrate National Kindergarten Day happening April 21st. If you'd like to learn more about HDFS and the work that they do, visit hdfs.missouri.edu. I'm Rachael Norden, and you've been listening to Thinking Out Loud from KBIA 91.3 FM.